Page 1137 of Lord MEHER, titled Tumultuous Travel, 1930. He opened the doors of his cage and called each inside for an embrace. Naval was the first to enter, followed by Gustaji, Bwasaheb, Chanji, Chander, Sidhu, and Vishnu. Baba directed the Mandali to erect a canopy in the compound of Gyas Manzil on the 13th for his birthday celebrations on the 17th, and to arrange for food for the visitors. The duty of cooking the food was assigned to Chuggan. Baba concluded the meeting by stating, quote, meditation, repetition of God's name, and spiritual practices in themselves have no meaning. While meditating, any thought comes. Compared to these, my service and sahavas are better, for they contain the seed of love, and only love is required. Bailey arrived the same night with a few other lovers from Karachi, including Pilmai and her husband Hormuzd. Bailey and Hormuzd were accommodated at Gyas Manzil, and the women of their group at the Talatis. After 10 days inside, Baba came out of his seclusion on Friday, 14 February 1930, and went to visit the women Mandali. After an hour, he returned to the Manzil, walked upstairs, and retired into his cage cabin. Baba kept himself closeted inside for the next 3 days. Memo and Franey Masi arrived the day of the 14th to attend the birthday function. The following day, more devotees came. Kakabaria, the confectioners, the Katrak family, Naroji's family, Baram, Murli, and Babu Kale, Anna 104, Ghani, Syed Jamadar, Gustaji's cousin from Bombay, Rustam Elavia, Manek Shroff, and a Christian friend of his, John Marquis. All were permitted upstairs to greet Baba, and Baba himself came down on the 16th. He took a stroll around the compound and sat by the well. Visitors gathered around him, and he gave a brief explanation on the evolution of the human form and involution to God. Meher Baba's 36th birthday was happily celebrated in Nasik at Gyas Manzil on Monday, 17 February 1930. Followers from Pune, Ahmednagar, Bombay, Karachi, Nagpur, Dhulia, and other places came for the occasion. Darshan started early that morning. The usual fruit, sweets, flowers, and garlands were piled high, and people of all castes and creeds took advantage of the beloved's company. Angal, pleader, delivered a touching speech about Baba's compassion. Kala Mama's son-in-law, KMV Rao Saheb Pandit, read out a poem he had composed in praise of Baba. Bhajan and Qawwali songs were performed, all joyously bathed in the beloved's divine light, which dispelled the dark clouds of their illusory vision. The next day, while explaining about his work, Baba stated, I work best, and my best work is done under these 3 conditions. In the presence of boys. For this reason, I keep boys with me and provide them with everything from food to clothing to money. When music is being, second point, when music is being played or songs are being sung. And the third point is while playing games, such as flying kites, cricket, atyapatya, or marbles. Continuing, Baba explained about the path. Love and self-surrender both lead one to the goal, but generally in the path of love, one drops his body after reaching the final destination, whereas the one who treads the path of surrender, besides becoming conscious of God, also becomes conscious of the three spheres, gross, subtle, and mental, and thus returns to gross consciousness to serve as a beacon of light to others on the path. That is why surrendering is better than love. A majzub has no other consciousness except of God, no gross, subtle, or mental consciousness. He is fully and divinely absorbed. After gaining normal consciousness, however, one can become conscious of the gross, subtle, and mental planes. Because of this, Sadgurus are able to lead others on the path and make them like themselves. The Sadguru's knowledge, gnosis, of normal consciousness is called Irfan by Sufis, and it is absolutely unique. One cannot even imagine it. Alongside their state of divinity, the perfect masters remain in the dirt of the world, the ocean of life. They work in the Maya of the illusory world, though this dirt does not touch them. On the contrary, they lift others from the world and purify them. Therefore, surrender to a perfect master is the best method of treading the path, and there is no better way than that for reaching the objective, God realization. Adi Sr. was also in Nasik during this period, staying at his brother Rustam's house, which was next to Sarosh Motor Works. On one occasion, while Baba was in seclusion, he called Adi and told him, "What I have done for you, I have done for none. What I have done with you, I have done with none. You have deep connection with me. Your lower eye is eradicated, but your mind is still there, which troubles you." Baba instructed Adi to sleep in his room at Gaius Manzil on the 17th and 18th. On 18th February, Baba went to Rustam's house very early. You want to do a couple pages now, Marv?
After Baba met with Rustam, Adi drove him back to Gaius Manzil at 10:30 a.m. There, Baba directed him, "Be back at 12 sharp." Adi agreed, and Baba again warned him, "I have some important work, so be sure to return by noon." Adi drove back to Rustam's garage, where Rustam asked him to drive some General Motors officials to the Travelers' Rest House. Adi thought there was still plenty of time, so he agreed. But Rustam kept talking with the men. Adi finally insisted, "We must leave now, as I have to pick up Baba at 12 o'clock. The men got in the car, and Adi began driving very fast to the dock bungalow. He was almost there when he approached the culvert where a few small children were playing. One of them pushed a little girl who fell in front of Adi's car. He swerved to avoid her, but she was struck by the back fender. Adi got out of the car and saw that blood was oozing from her mouth. The businessman also got out, and Adi told him to walk the rest of the way. He put the girl in the car and glanced at his watch. It was exactly 12 noon. Adi took the girl to the hospital and then drove to Gaius Manzil. Baba was standing on the veranda. He looked annoyed and asked, "What happened? Why are you late?" "Baba, I had an accident," Adi cried, and he sorrowfully described what had happened. Baba was furious and bitterly remarked, "I hope they put you in jail. What can I do now? You disobeyed me." Adi was pale with fear and remorse. Baba consoled him, "Don't worry, but never forget to follow my orders literally." The girl died, and a lawsuit was filed against Adi. It dragged on in court for 4 months. However, In the end, Adi was found not guilty of negligent homicide, but was fined for not reporting the accident to the police. He went through a very depressing and anxious period for having disobeyed Baba. On Wednesday, 19th February 1930, Khan Saheb, which is Rustam and Adi's father, suddenly came to Nasik and was brought to Gayas Manzil by Baba's mother. Baba spent an hour talking with him, probably about Adi's trouble. Udumji, too, had a private audience with Baba that day, and Datu Mahendarj was sent home at the insistence of his mother. When Baba was at Akbar Press at the end of January, he had explained the different duties of walis, peers, and perfect masters, stating, walis manage and are directly connected with the gross world. Peers manage and are directly connected with the subtle and mental worlds. And perfect masters are above all, but work through them. A few days later, Baba added, every big city has a wali who is in charge and manages all gross affairs under a peer who has charge of a number of cities. A wali is therefore like a collector, a peer like a commissioner, and a perfect master like a king or emperor.
Can you read a little bit slower, please? And can you read from a few days later? It's fast, I can't follow, sorry.
A few days later, Baba had added, every big city has a wali who is in charge and manages all gross affairs under a peer who has charge of a number of cities. A wali is therefore like a collector, a peer like a commissioner, and a perfect master like a king or emperor. There are different kinds of walis. The Abtad is the most powerful. Abdals can change their body in a second to suit the need. On the night of 20th February, Baba further elaborated. A wali can give spiritual experiences of the path. He has the power to open the third eye and grant divine sight if he is in the mood. He can do so by simply looking into the eyes of the aspirant, even if the aspirant is at a distance. When the third eye is opened, all is light. The small circles of light one perceives when one's eyes are tightly shut is the 17th lakh shadow of the light one sees when the third eye is open. So imagine how powerful that is. It is so powerful an experience that the recipient either goes mad or drops the body. That light shows one the path quite clearly, where one can tread, yet it is not the real light. Sadgurus won't do that. They won't show light by opening someone's third eye. They can take the aspirant directly through the path. One type of wali is called avtad. They are very, very few, quite rare. They are very fiery, with piercing eyes that break through anything, even mountains. Their gaze is sufficient to cut an animal in two. Hence, they always keep their eyes on the ground. That too is split apart. For instance, if they look at a flying bird, it falls dead from the sky. The avtad doesn't do it intentionally. It happens automatically, and the one who dies gets no particular benefit. Abdals can change their bodies. One moment they may be seen in Bombay, and the next moment in America in the same body, but they can appear only at one place at a time. Sadgurus can present themselves anywhere, at any time, at many places, at the same time, either in gross or subtle form, for they have a universal body. Liberation is the goal. After that, some retain their body and some leave it. If the body is retained, they come down for duty after about a month. The few saliks and majzubs that keep their body after liberation have no care for the world. However, those who come in their contact are greatly benefited by their darshan, touch, and service, for they are God personified, though they don't even know it, being only conscious of their higher self. Sadgurus sometimes take the help of walis, majzubs, in their work by bringing them down to the, quote, resting point. They then experience the sufferings of a Sadguru and not of a majzub. These majzubs, at times, quite unconsciously, abuse the Sadguru if they happen to meet him. One majzub is expected to come in Madras, and I may bring him onto the resting point. Anna Saheb Kalamama's brother was among those new devotees who had come to Nasik for Meher Baba's birthday. During darshan, he invited Baba to visit his house in Kolhapur. Many others from South India also invited Baba to come to their homes. Baba was considering their requests since he wanted to go on tour. During the birthday, people would gather around Baba and place their difficulties before him, worldly, political, and otherwise. He became so fed up with their problems and worries that after the visitors departed on Thursday, 20th February 1930, he complained to the Mandali, "What harassment these people cause me. All weep for themselves. Not one has any thought about me or my suffering. Every one of them lays his own woes before me and thinks only of himself." Baba then asked, "Is there anything wrong if I cancel the visit to Kolhapur?" Chanji answered on behalf of the Mandali, "It doesn't matter to us, but it will not be good for you. It is all the same to us whether you go or don't go. But if you cancel your visit, your lovers will be pained, and this will cause you to feel sad also." Baba accepted this reasoning, and a journey to South India was scheduled. On the 21st, Baba took the boys for an evening ride to a temple on a nearby hill. When they got down from the bus, Baba said he would present the first boy to reach the top of the hill with a pocket watch. With shouts of glee, the boys scampered off and raced to the top. Baba enjoyed the spectacle. For the journey to Kolhapur, a new 12-ton bus driven by a driver, Rambau Alayar, was hired for Baba and others. Mahu, would you like to read now?
Yes. Page 1142, year 1930, we're reading Lord Meher. An older Chevrolet bus to be driven by another driver, Shamsher Khan, was sent by Minu Pahabala for the Mandali. The following men accomplished Baba: Bosaheb, Chanji, Chagan, Dastur, Gustaji, Kaka Shahan, Kalemama, Manek Shraf, and Rao Sahib. Baba also took with him on the trip Babu Campbell, Chandra, Shankar, and Kalingat. They were former ashram schoolboys who were now employed at Sarosh Motor Works in Nasik, learning to be mechanics. The group left Nasik on Sunday, 23rd February 1930 at 6 in the morning. But before leaving, Baba switched the drivers and had Shamsher Khan drive his vehicle as the other driver, Rambau Aliyor, didn't know the roads. Along the way, Baba wanted the drivers to switch places again, but Aliyor didn't come immediately. So Baba changed his mind. No one could understand what work Baba was accomplishing. At another stop, Baba served the Mandali breakfast of a slice of bread with vegetables, and they started again. But along the way, there were continual engine, steering, and brake problems in the Mandali's bus. Parenthesis, the situation became particularly dicey on dangerous curve in the road 7 miles from Sangamner. Both buses stopped in Ahmednagar, where Baba met his followers. They then left, but did not reach Pune until 3 a.m. The Pune lovers waiting at Sadashiv Patil's house had fallen asleep. Baba himself knocked on the door, but it was the wrong house. A Jewish man opened the door and was startled to see a group of strangers holding kerosene lanterns. He directed them to Sadashiv's house, where they rested for a few hours. Before leaving at 11 a.m. the next morning, Baba visited his parents and siblings at Baba House. Sadashiv joined the group from Pune. They reached Kalhapur without any further car trouble at 7 p.m. On the 24th, but they did not stay at Kala Mama's cousin's house. Baba had chosen a small room for himself, but while all were busy in preparing dinner, a boy who was staying in that room arrived suddenly and locked the door from inside. Baba became upset and ordered everyone to shift to the Dak bungalow. Kale Mama explained that he had been trying to keep Baba's visit low-key, as instructed, and had not even informed the residents that a distinguished guest was coming to stay in their house. Baba forgave him and had dinner, but alternative arrangements for Baba's stay were immediately made in the Tapovan forest area, where he was given a room in a bungalow. The Mandali slept on the veranda. As Baba had been scheduled to leave at 10 the following morning, no programs had been planned in Kolhapur. But that morning, the principal of a nearby high school, W.D. Topkane, met Baba and requested that he visit his institution. Baba agreed and went there at 8:30 a.m. He spoke to the students, teachers, and staff about various aspects of the spiritual life, divine experience, love, grace, and renunciation of the ego. Topkane and the vice principal, G.Y. Dixit, expressed their deep devotion to the master, and Baba was very pleased with their efforts to emphasize to their students the importance of spirituality over politics and careers. Topkane introduced a Swami to Baba, who had once been a high-ranking member of the prestigious Indian civil service. The Swami had adopted the path of selfless service, renouncing a distinguished career. Baba expressed his pleasure at meeting the Swami and remarked to him, "It is good that you have renounced everything. But even after renouncing all, the I is there, the capital I is there. And to gain knowledge, this I has to be totally uprooted. Even the greatest material self-sacrifice does not make this I disappear. The mind says, I did this, I did that, I do good for others. When the mind dies, all desires vanish, but the mind lasts until the end. To achieve God realization, this I must go once and for all." Baban Shahain, Kaka's son and one of the original students of Meher Ashram, had Baba's darshan here also. Addressing Vinayak Damodar, Vinayak Damodar Karnataki, 24, a student and friend of Baban's brother Mohan, Baba stated, "Dedicate your life to this school by renouncing yourself, but let there not be even a thought that you are doing this or that for others. Only then will the I gradually diminish. Appear for the Bachelor of Science examination and try to obtain the degree, but do not feel glad if you pass or disappointed if you fail. Success and failure should be equal in your eyes. Supposing you pass, do not think, now that I have passed, I will be able to render better service than if I had failed. This is not desirable. The I must not be there. There should not be ambition, except the existence of bliss. There is nothing else anywhere in creation." Baba then asked Vinayak what he was thinking. "I want to get a master's degree," the young man replied. "My parents have repeatedly been after me to do this."
All right, thanks, Mahu. P.S. Would you like to read today?
Yes, Baba.
Go ahead, please.
Page 114. Smiling Baba dictated, "Very good. But will you invite me to this school again after you are so highly educated? Won't you come uninvited, Baba? Since you asked that, I will personally come for you next time."
Note says Vinayak Karnataki later changed careers and became a well-known actor and film director, working under the name Master Vinayak.
Baba was on his way to the Nilgiri Hills and possibly Madras, where he had been invited by a disciple named Sampat Iyengar, whose entire family was dedicated to the master. The staff of the school entreated Baba to visit the institution again on his way back to Nasik. Baba replied that if it was possible, he would. Before departing, Baba emphasized to Vinayak's roommate, an artist who was interested in spirituality. "In this path, the heart counts more than the head. If both are good, that is best, but the heart should be predominant. I will explain further when I come back. The boys paraded before Baba, recited a prayer, and took his darshan. Baba was much pleased with the spirit of love, dedication, and self-sacrifice of all those connected with the school. He and the Mandali enjoyed a splendid lunch at the school and left Kolhapur near noon, headed towards Dharwad. The Mandali could not help but wonder at the turn of events, and once again it illustrated to them the unseen workings of the Master. As Chanji noted at the time, it was good that the boy locked the door from inside last night, at which Baba showed so much displeasure. That was the cause, in brackets, excuse, which he created to come over to the school, where so many eager hearts were ready to welcome him and deserving of his darshan. After they left Kolhapur, Baba surprised those traveling with him by asking, "Where should we? Should we go to Madras or not? If we don't, Sampath Iyengar and his family will be extremely disappointed." The map of South India tour. Baba decided to proceed to Madras. A telegram was sent to Iyengar informing him that Baba was willing to postpone his visit to the Nilgiri Hills and come to Madras if arrangements could be made for him. At the same time, Iyengar was instructed not to detain Baba for more than one day. He was told that Baba would grant private interviews only to a few close ones and give a general darshan to all. Ramju was able to inform Vishnu to meet them in Madras. On the way, the inevitable car trouble occurred.
Okay, thank you, PS. I think we're going to have another reader only because your connection is a little noisy. Eugene, would you take over again?
Page 1145. This time there was a puncture, as well as a leaking radiator in one of the buses, which caused the engine to overheat. The roads, too, were generally unpaved and rough, which forced them to drive slowly. It was 10 at night before they managed with difficulty to reach Dharwad and have dinner.
No. Dharwad was also known as Dharwad.
Baba went for a walk around the town and they then went to a dak bungalow for the night. Rao Saheb, Bua Saheb, Chanji, and Chagan shared the night watch. The following day was the Hindu holiday, 1st March 1930. The Hindu holiday of Mahashivratri. And Baba permitted the men to sing his arti, both in Gujarati and Marathi. The two drivers and their helpers joined in. The group reached Hubli by way of Belgaum, where a cable from Iyengar was waiting for them. The message was, "All devotees overjoyed. Pray come on first. Where should we come to receive you?" End quote. A reply was sent. Baba arrived in Madras on Saturday, 1 March 1930. KJ Dastur was already there, as his health had not been good, and he had preceded them from Arcot by train. Baba was received with great love and reverence and escorted to the Iyengar family residence, Meher Bhavan, at 26 Brahmin Street in Saidapet, where they were to stay. C.V. Sampath Iyengar, 53 years old, was a prominent judge who had learned of Baba 2 years before, but this was his first meeting. Very early the next morning,
Gene, you seem to have frozen. I'm going to
That's
read it
because
till Gene comes back. Very early the next morning, Baba visited the Child Welfare Center where Iyengar's daughter, Lakshmi, was doing volunteer social work. He bathed the child and distributed sweets. He then toured a nearby slum and entered the hut of a very poor woman. He asked for something to eat or drink, and the old woman, who had practically nothing, offered him some 2-day-old kanji, some porridge, in an unclean tin vessel. Baba had a bit and then gave it to those of the Iyengar family who had accompanied him, telling them to have it also. It is the elixir of life, he said, smiling. At about 7:30 a.m., Baba inaugurated a hall built by Iyengar opposite his residence, which Baba had named Meher Asramam. Footnote says Meher Asramam contained a reading room, a place for storing exercise equipment, such as dumbbells for use of the poor and disadvantaged youth of Saidapet. There was an open area in the back for use as a playground also. Afterwards, Baba planted a people sapling at Meher Bhavan, thus symbolizing that for generations to come, people would find shelter under the cool shade of his love. The Iyengar family was truly blessed. Baba's happiness filled not only their house, but their hearts as well. In the afternoon, he visited the homes of K.S. Srinivasan, Mudaliar Adivelu, and Amal Pankajam. A large function was held in Madras that evening at Goshen Hall. Dastor delivered a speech in an excited manner. In his fervor, he declared, "We, as Meher Baba's lovers, should be prepared to write his messages in our own blood. Let us all kill ourselves in disseminating his divine message among the people." End quote. At this, Daki, who had also met them in Madras, whispered to Baba, "Dastor doesn't weigh more than 90 pounds. He looks like he is suffering from anemia. How is he going to write your messages in his blood? He doesn't have enough." Baba smiled but did not comment, and Dastor's speech was received with vociferous cheering. Leaving Madras on the 3rd of March in one of the buses and a car, it proceeded towards Bangalore. On the way, Baba remarked that there was a 6-plane wali in Mysore who had been born as a wali. Sadashiv told Baba that he had read in the newspaper about a man in Mysore who remembers his past life. He recognizes his previous parents, their home in every detail, Sadashiv related. Baba commented briefly, "There are a few such people who abruptly remember events of their past lives. They generally are those who die in a sudden accident, the shock of which has such a force on them that it leaves impressions of their last birth, which they remember in their present birth. But this has nothing to do with realizing the truth or spiritual advancement." The group arrived in Bangalore the following day and drove on, passing the Seringapatam Fort, 9 miles from Mysore. Newspaper accounts of the death of the former Shah of Iran had been read out to Baba the previous month. About the Shah's brother, who had assumed his position, Baba remarked, "Will the king of Persia live or die? If I reach Mysore by 8 p.m., he will live." Bu Saheb then said to the driver, "The life of a king is in your hands, so please drive quickly." They arrived at 7:45 p.m. and continued to Mudagiri, where they spent the night. They left early the next morning after a walk around the town. There were plenty of tigers, lions, and bears roaming the jungles surrounding my store. On Thursday, the 6th of March, 1930, when the conversation turned to wild animals, Baba advised, if you ever encounter any such savage animals, or if you find yourselves in a perilous, desperate situation, cry out my name loudly. I will then save you. Even if you die, you should know that I have saved you, because my protection is real protection. I always protect my lovers. There is a difference between remembering my name and actually saying it out loud. In the eventuality of your body being overcome with fear in the presence of any wild animal or other creature, such as a snake, at such moments of danger, you should loudly cry out my name so loud that the sound of my name falls on the creature's ears, which will immediately make it as meek as a lamb. But before inanimate objects, during any serious mishap or accident, such as a car crash or a train wreck, you will be saved by remembering me with full faith from the bottom of your heart. Baba then touched on the various stages of development. A person has to pass through 3 stages before realization: evolution, reincarnation, and advancement on the path. From stone to animal to human form is evolution. This is the first stage. With the human form, evolution ends, and the cycle of rebirth begins. This is the second stage. The third stage is involution through the spiritual plane.
planes.
In Africa, there is a full swing of evolution, as all types of animals, plants, and metals are found there. In Europe and America, reincarnation is intensified, with people taking birth after birth, and quickly too. In Asia, there is spiritual progress and advancement on the path. That is why saints and masters are found in the East, particularly in India. They reached the town of Javali, where they had tea. A Hindu, J. Krishnarao Gurjar, saw Baba and the Mandali standing on the road. Drawn to the master, Krishnarao spontaneously invited Baba to stay at his brother's coffee plantation, Horikan Estate, and the Mandali were quite surprised when Baba accepted. The road to Horikan was extremely narrow and steep, and at one point all had to get down and walk. Krishnarao's brother, Ganeshrao, was equally sincere. Both were meeting the master for the first time, and Baba was very pleased with their devotion and love. Humbly, Ganeshrao said to Baba, "Your visit is our great good fortune. Our house is sanctified by your presence." Baba's arti was sung. After tea and refreshments, Baba went on a walk to see the local waterfall. It was a treacherous, narrow mountain pass, and Baba sprained his ankle. 2 photos were taken, but the person taking them did not wind the film, and the pictures did not turn out. Baba rested that night at Ganeshrao's home. Early the next morning, Baba led a hike with Krishnarao to the summit of a nearby hill in search of a place for seclusion. Although Baba's ankle was still very painful, he ascended the hill with agility and speed. Krishnarao expressed his amazement at this, and Baba commented to him, "The ways of Sadgurus are quite different. When a person sprains his foot, he is required to take rest. But in my case, by climbing the mountain, my leg is cured. What a Sadguru does is quite the reverse of the ordinary ways of the world." Baba's photo was again taken here. Gene, would you like to pick up reading again? Try it again?
Sure. Page 1148. Finding no suitable spot for seclusion, Baba led the group back. Baba took a bath when they returned. He was in a relaxed mood. However, when Gustaji was combing his hair, Baba's countenance suddenly turned grave. The apparent cause was that Ganesh Rao's wife, a bashful woman, felt embarrassed when Baba called her to help comb his hair. Baba became irritated at her refusal and remarked, "What is the use of staying at a place where people are afraid and ashamed of me? All be ready to leave right after lunch." The Mandali were taken aback since all their clothes had been laundered and were hanging out to dry. Baba directed Chagan to bring the clothes later. While the Mandali were hastily preparing to leave, Krishna Rao entreated Baba to forgive his sister-in-law. Baba consoled him. "It is no fault of yours, nor of anyone else. I am very happy with you. Don't worry. I came from so far and stayed here one night for your sake." Baba continued, "It is something else. There are other reasons. Just do as I say. You have formed my friendship, so be a true and faithful friend by accepting my wish." Baba left Hari Khan for Mangalore on the afternoon of Friday, 7 March. After arriving there, a telegram was sent to Minu Pohawala at Bijapur, informing him that Baba had accepted his invitation and that they were on their way. They spent the night at Mangalore, and the next day they took a drive and walked around the town, along the seashore and to the seaport. They departed after buying newspapers at the railway station. It was the start of an eventful day the Mandali would never forget. At 10:30 a.m., they stopped for tea at the town of Karkal, where Baba fondly remembered Dr. Karkal, the deceased Ahmednagar physician who had served at Mehrabad in 1925. Dr. Karkal was a very good soul, Baba reminisced. When they got back into the bus, Basaheb wanted to sit in the front seat in Shroff's place. Chagan too wanted to occupy the front seat. There was a disagreement about it, and it was brought to Baba's attention. He instructed them not to change their original positions. They continued and began ascending the Agumbi mountain on some of the worst roads they had ever encountered. Not only was the road steep and full of hairpin curves, but it was so narrow that only one vehicle at a time could pass. Just as the Mandali's bus was going around a curve, the bus suddenly began sliding backward. No one knew what to do, but they began to repeat Baba's name. The driver lost control of the steering wheel. The bus rolled backwards over a small stone wall, separating the road from a deep valley below, crying out, "Baba, Baba, Baba." All were certain the bus was about to crash and they would die. Suddenly, the bus came to a complete halt, gasping. Some were on the verge of fainting. No one could explain how the bus had stopped rolling backwards. Only Baba's Nazar had saved them. Otherwise, the bus would certainly have rolled off the cliff and plunged to the valley below. After carefully getting out, they saw that half the bus was hanging over the cliff. There was nothing to suggest why it had not continued over the cliff. It was both astonishing and inexplicable. Some of the Mandali began to weep, thanking Baba for having his Nazar on them. Vishnu cried out, "Baba has saved our lives today. Let us all shout his jai." Baba instructed the men to pull the bus back onto the road, and he stood nearby and personally supervised. After much effort by all, the bus was pushed back onto the road. This was more dangerous than it sounds because there was the possibility of the bus sliding back again. and dragging some of the men over the cliff with it. Afterward, they stopped at a waterfall, washed their faces, and refreshed themselves. Bua Sahib had been appointed the manager of this journey, supervising the men and boys. Preparing to leave, Baba instructed Bua Sahib that some of the group were to go by bus and some in advance by car. Bua Sahib was about to ask Baba who should be seated in the bus and who in the car when Dastur entered the bus and the car left without him. Baba was highly annoyed. He ordered all to wait by the bus until those in the car came back. Baba began scolding Bua Sahib, blaming him for what had happened. Why did you break my order? Why didn't you ask me about it before the car left? Before Bua Sahib could answer, Baba slapped his own face violently on both cheeks, and his expression turned grave. He stated, when the master has to punish himself for the faults of his disciples over their disregard for his orders, it is not good. Mahu.
Go ahead, Mahu.
Irritated. Irritated with Bua Sahib, Baba demanded, "Come and stand before me. Why are you hiding behind the others?" Completely despondent, Bua Sahib replied, "I no longer wish to remain with you, Baba. I will go away at any time without informing anyone. Either grant me full authority so the others will obey me, or relieve me of this duty of being manager. You want to be so superior? If you want to go, go." Bua Sahib was on the verge of tears and replied meekly, "You never even inquired about what happened." Baba snapped, "I know everything. There is no necessity to ever tell me anything." Beckoned Dastur, Baba kissed him. Baba then walked to the car and drove off. After driving some distance, the Mandali began discussing the reason Baba had become so upset and then struck himself. Dastur said, "Baba doesn't need a reason," and he made some other disrespectful remarks. Vishnu could not bear it. He lashed out at Dastur furiously. "You pompous ass, you are so full of pride that you think you have a right to act like you wish? Because you have been to college and have a law degree, you think you are something special? Had any of us acted like you, Baba would have kicked us and cut us to pieces. But Baba never scolds you. He never criticizes or punishes you. And you think you are someone great. But you don't understand the reason why. We who have been with Baba from the beginning have placed our necks at his feet. But your pride has prevented you from doing that. You could never do it. Your ego is too inflated. In fact, you are not a Baba man." Income. They began arguing, and Vishnu continued his verbal attack of Dastur. "You give speeches telling people to write Baba's messages in blood and disseminate them everywhere. Ha! What hypocrisy! What is the use of such empty words? Don't you know actions speak louder than words? Dastur got up and changed his seat on the bus, contrary to Baba's orders, which the others pointed out. Rao Sahib told him in plain terms to stop moving around. Dastur became livid and physically attacked both Sahib, Rao Sahib, Chanji and Chagan, causing a horrendous ruckus in the moving bus. Dastur actually bit Rao Sahib's lip and Chanji's and Chagan's hands. Chanji tried to reason with him. Quote, "It was Baba's order that none of us should change our seats. Does it behoove you to act in this way? You being the editor of MEHER message, you're breaking Baba's order as well as behaving rudely." Page 1151. Vishnu was also highly wrought and started to jump from the moving bus, shouting, "Let me off, for God's sake, let me out of here." The other Mandali grabbed him. At this point, Baba had his car stopped and got out. Footnote.
Baba may have been in the bus already. Chanji's diary is unclear about this point.
He boarded the bus and slapped Vishnu soundly. Vishnu broke down sobbing, and Baba sat next to him, keeping his head on his lap. He told the driver to drive on. After 10 or 15 minutes, Baba had the bus halted. All got down and gathered around Baba. Baba was quiet for a while and then explained, "A great work has been done today. A spirit or ghost entered me after my afternoon rest. I was apparently upset at Kishnoro's place, and without any rhyme or reason took Chagan and Ba to task, although it does not take much for me to find an excuse to beat them. But even this was of no avail and did not bring about the result I wanted in my work. You do not have the slightest idea of our master's work. How could you ever grasp our work concerning the three worlds? The momentum of the work was so intense today that I berated two of my closest disciples. This is the way Sadgurus bring about tranquility after their own inner work." The momentum went on increasing until I raised my hand in the direction of Kalingad, and I beat him on account of Sharaf. In the end, I had to bear the intensity of the force myself. If I had beaten everyone, all would have bowed out and been terribly upset. So I took it upon myself to avoid a row. Some momentum was still left, which I completed here by beating some of you through the strife in the bus. If Vishnu was overcome with so much anger at this slighted remainder of the momentum of my work, think of how great its force must be at full pressure. Whatever happened, it was my double quote key. Otherwise, there was no reason for Dastur to act as he did and for Vishnu to get so upset. No Sadguru has a mandali like mine. Look at the mandali of Narayan Maharaj, Upasni Maharaj, and Babajan. Page 1152. How good my mandali are. They are with me for years without any hope of reward. They try their best to carry out my orders and must undergo severe hardships. Travels with me entail great privations. Yeah, the harassment that I give is greater during my travels, and it is while traveling that my greatest work is done. At such times, those of the Mandali who are with me in the journey are really lucky. It was also true of my journey to Kashmir. There was a lull afterwards, and it has now been repeated in this journey. There is a secret purpose behind all this, which you cannot comprehend. But I am happy that you all were made to suffer for my case. Seeing tears in the eyes of both Sahib, Patil, and Sharaf when I struck myself has afforded me great pleasure and consolation. And at the same time, I feel like laughing at their strange behavior. Vishnu says, I am leaving. Bosaheb replies, you're not the only one. I am going too. This amuses me very much. Today, all got injured, some physically and almost all mentally. Now I forgive every one of you. The Mandali were satisfied with Baba's explanation, and the group boarded the bus and proceeded toward Bijapur, reaching the Malur Dak bungalow at 10 p.m. They reached Hubli on Sunday, 9 March 1930, having driven through Shimoga, Honali, and Harihar. The next day, they received 2 telegrams, one from Minu Pohawala and one from Kaka Bariya. Kaka had wired that Aga Ali had not yet arrived in Bombay, and Minu's telegram concerning financial matters without acknowledging receipt of Baba's previous telegram about Baba's decision to visit Bijapur. Baba asked, quote, should we go to Bijapur or not? They discussed the alternative of visiting Panchgani, but due to Kalimama's difficulties with the arranging matters of Panchgani, it was eventually decided to go on to Bijapur. On the evening of the 10th, they reached Minu's MEHER Motor works in Bijapur, where Minu received them warmly. A darshan was held, and they had a fine moonlight drive after dinner to a lake. They rested that night and left the next day by train. But even this journey But even this journey was not without its troubles, as Baba was quote unquote out of mood and disturbed by other passengers. They had to change trains in the middle of the night at dawn and arrived in Nasik at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, 12 March.